Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be focusing on the top 10 loadouts for Warzone Season 2, and this is after the agency suppressor fix. And since we only have 10 loadouts, this will not include every weapon I think is viable. That'll probably be included in a separate video once things get a little bit of a chance to settle out and we find out what is actually worth using beyond the meta. If you kind of want to experiment and get outside of that box, I will include timestamps like I normally do on the bar or down in the description. If you enjoy the video, learn something new, please do me a favor, hit the like button. I'm going to go for a high goal today because you guys have been destroying it. Let's go ahead and see if we can hit 10,000 likes on today's video. And if you're looking to find your way back to the channel for whatever reason and haven't yet subscribed, double check, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on, because currently 57% of you out there watching that haven't yet subscribed. So let's go ahead and get into it. Pretty straightforward. And this is something I've done on the channel for quite a while, and I continue to update these and keep it very consistent for you, and you get an idea of what is actually being used and why. So I always have my 10th ranked class as my experimental one because I'm always changing stuff on this last loadout, and these other ones allow me to have them fixed. So if I just want to go into a match, only focus on getting kills or rotating early or getting a win or whatever, I have those classes set up for specific reasons and scenarios as we'll go through. And the experimental one, I typically change that out maybe when I'm testing something specifically in plunder, bullet velocity, range, or whatever else. I have that experimental one for freedom. And sometimes I get to talk a little bit about a class that I think you might want to try out. This is the XM4. Finally glad I can use the XM4. And right here, the loadout for my first experimental class is the agency suppressor because of the buff. Extended so we can focus on bullet velocity, since 90% of the engagements I take with this are going to be on like 35-40 meters. So I don't really need extra range since the damage drop off is so early, right around 20 meters. Even if I push this up to 28 with a better range, it's not going to really help this weapon since I'm taking on engagements at such a further range. And this one actually feels like a really good gun. Build agent grip, 60 round mag, and then we have the vision tech. And the main reason I'm using this one because it does help with a lot of the visual recoil. This or the SUSAT multi-zoom, but the SUSAT multi-zoom slows down your aim down sight significantly, so I generally don't like that one, even though it makes it look like you have less recoil and it's more manageable to control. And for the secondary, I don't think there's a lot of great options in this category just because the FFAR is that broken. I think once this one gets nerfed, we'll probably have like a 3 or 4 weapon close range option, but currently the FFAR is just so good. This is probably what the vast majority of people that you're going to see will be using when you get into a match. Obviously, I've updated. I've talked about the different ways to use this weapon, whether you want it with the suppressor or without. Those are on the channel. This one's straightforward. Agency suppressor, takedown for the strafe speed, build agent grip because it stacks better with the agency for recoil, 50 round mag, and then we have the Raider stock for that extra strafe speed, since this is going to be a close quarters monster up to about 30-40 meters. While the other weapon's going to kind of fill in the gap. Double time, because not as many lethals going around if you want to use EOD. Those are the main two options. Obviously, late game and plunder, maybe you switch it to cold-blooded if you're getting shot by one of those helis. But for the most part, these are the only two options I would recommend using for perk 1. Perk 2, generally overkill, restock, or ghost. There are scenarios where maybe hardline makes sense or high alert. But generally, the ones that make the most sense and you're probably going to go with are overkill, so you get both your loadout guns, restock so you can stock up on stuns and lethals, and then go so you can keep yourself off the minimap with the suppressed weapon and a UAV in the air. So it kind of all stacks together. Perk 3, pretty much I almost always go with amped. I don't really see another reason to use anything else. Obviously, if you play a little bit more of a passive style, amp might not be the main go-to because you're always already going to be on the weapon that you need to use in that scenario versus swapping and having to deal with that slower swap. Shrapnel, complete waste, battle hardened. Okay, it's very niche scenarios. If you get stunned, it may help you, but more than likely you get hit with the stun, you're going to die if the person is even half decent. Spotter's pretty cool because then you can hack people's stuff if they are camping up somewhere and you got an idea where they're at. Good perk to go ahead and counteract that. And then tracker could be particularly helpful, especially in solos. If somebody runs into a building, you can at least see the footsteps, especially with Rose skin being as dark and hard to see as it is. So pretty straightforward there. Lethal, Semtech's most popular, C4 is still very good. Claymores, depending on the scenario, and those are primarily the 3 that I would go with personally. Heartbeat sensor for obvious reason. It is one of the most useful things, especially in the beginning of the game. When the first loadout comes in, most people don't have Ghost. A little bit further in the match, people get Ghost. So that's kind of how this first loadout goes through. And I set that up just so I could breeze through the other class setups just a little bit faster. So that's the 10th. 9th is going to be Kar98 with Restock. And this loadout is specifically designed for when I'm going and grab a second loadout and I'm keeping the weapons on hand. I still have a Kar98 set up in case I wanted to switch to a Kar98. Let's say I'm running an SMG and a rifle and I want to get rid of the SMG because maybe we're taking up top quarry. I might go ahead and switch to a Kar98 so I get that one-shot sniper kill potential. This one's monolithic suppressor, 27-inch barrel, tac laser, sniper scope, and there's a few different options here. Focus is pretty good. For flinch, you can go with the precision comb, the FTAC sports comb, or you can go ahead and go with the presence of mind, which allows you to hold your breath longer. Really comes down to preference and how you want to use the weapon. The secondary, as you can see, it's fully loaded, so I'm not actually using these pistols in any way. This is not a loadout. I'm coming back from 5th zone to grab this. It's just not the case, and that's not what's going to happen. So I fully loaded built in there, so if I grab this as my second loadout, I'm automatically going to get stacked with that SMG ammo because that's what that'll allow it to do. And then I'm still going to keep double time, restock, amped. And then if I want to go ahead and run lethals, I go ahead and keep them. And this is usually different than one of these other loadouts that have a Semtex. So I could swap it out, it'll drop on the floor, and then I could decide between both of them. If I had them the exact same, then I wouldn't really be able to pick and choose what I want because I would just have Semtex and that would be it. At least this gives me the option, pick which one makes the most sense for the individual scenario and how I want to play that specific match based on the zone. So the pistol, pretty much the loadout on the pistol is almost irrelevant, primarily because I'm getting it for fully loaded. If you want to stack it the exact same way, monolithic burst on the Renetti. Obviously, the Diamatis are pretty good, but they don't have the option for fully loaded, and I don't think they'll ever be the case. Lightweight trigger and then 27-round mag. Same thing here, pretty much. I get the HDR, but I feel like, hey, you know what? We need to hold a high position. HDR is going to be a little bit better at 450 meters. Gatekeeping people at the edge of the zone coming near you. Top prison, this is like a perfect one if you're just going for a win. This is what you want, and I have the same thing, fully loaded, stacked there, so nothing else changes on the loadout. You see with Ghost, I have a Semtex and a stun, and then for the loadout, monolithic, HDR Pro, tac laser, variable zoom scope, and the FTAC Stalker Scout. With this loadout, easily hit 450, 500 meter shots with the sniper, even further, but this is by far one of the best optics with bullet velocity on the weapon. Obviously, you're going to have glint or whatever, but that's kind of normal part of the Battle Royale. Then it comes to Zone 5, coming back from the gulag, I'm floating, got to wait for the loadout to drop, I'm going to land on it. What do I pick up? You either pick up a loadout that you're just going to have from these top 5 that we're going to look at, or you grab loadout number 6 or 7. The only difference here is the Semtex with Ghost, or we got the Restock with Claymore. You can see pretty much they're both stun grenades. We got amp double time for both, fully loaded on both. They're both pretty much the identical class setup. The only difference is the perk and the lethal and the Semtex. Main reason you use this, the Grau is pound for pound one of the best guns without an optic that is multi-versatile, that can be used at short, medium, and long range. Not particularly amazing at anything, but it does really well with clean iron sights, and you can engage people at all those various distances with a free perk, which is essentially free, fully loaded. Obviously, normal Grau class setup, you're going to run tac laser, VOK, maybe a rear grip. But with this particular one, you're still going to come out fully decked with ammo, and then you have the option there. A lot of times, if I already have my overkill, I'll grab my perks with this one, and then I'll fully restock on my rifle ammo and SMG. So that's the benefit of getting this. If you're already running a rifle SMG combo, then you get full ammo. If I'm running a rifle combo, which is pretty popular right now, I'll be stacked on ammo. So pretty straightforward kind of reasons why I choose those particular things the way they are. Now we get into the top 5. This 5th place spot is kind of one of those fluid ones. I could probably put the Stoner in here, the Bruin, a few other weapons, but I decided to put in the Ram because of the meta that is currently built is a close range to medium range option with a sniper support. So basically you're running a sniper with something that can handle those short to medium, and the Ram does a really good job of that. I think it's more a little bit practical in solos, duos, even borderline trios. Get to quads, 50 rounds ain't quite enough, but it's kind of how it goes, right? You got to balance that out. So the Ram, pretty much the same build, we have the Ram 7 here, monolithic, FSS Ranger. If you feel like you don't need as much help with the recoil, you can always go with the Eclipse. It is going to be a little bit faster, so there is a little trade-off there. Tac Laser, Commando foregrip, 50 round mag, straightforward build, and then the Kar98. Pretty much, like I said, you could swap that up a little bit. Monolithic, single arms, tac laser, sniper scope, and F-tac sport comb. Like I said, that last attachment you can kind of swap around and choose based off your preferences. Pretty straightforward there. That gets us into number 4, which is the AMAX MAC-10. This is a long range, medium range AMAX. You could swap this out for a hollow if you really want to use a little bit more medium range. Can be a little bit harder to hit your shots at ranges because they're going to be a little bit smaller. VLK helps out with that scenario. The same class setup that's been around for a while. A lot of the Modern Warfare class setups are pretty much unchanged. Monolithic suppressor, Zodiac, Commando, 45 round mag, and the VLK optic. For the secondary, the MAC-10 is still really good. It's not as dominant as it was in Season 1 because of all the various changes and fixes. FFAR is still going to be the way to go, but some people like the movement of an SMG and how fast you move with this thing, although it'll never be as good as it was in Season 1, especially early on in Season 1 when it was broken. Agency suppressor, reinforced heavy, field agent grip, 50 round drum mag, and then the combat stock, again for straight speed mobility. That brings us to number 3 on the list, and that is going to be the FFAR. It's pretty much a similar build that we talked about. Agency, takedown, field agent grip, 50 round mag, and then we also have the Raider stock. Pretty straightforward there. Kar98, again, pretty much similar build that we've already talked about. Monolithic, 27-inch tac laser, sniper scope, and the tac sport cone. And then the rest is pretty much the same. Like I said, you can swap out the perks. Then we get to the AMAX sniper, and I think this one's a little bit more of a close range AMAX. Obviously, you can get rid of the optic completely. I just don't think really many people do that. They stick with the blue dot if you have a holographic, or maybe even a reflex if you're really comfortable with that. But monolithic, Zodiac, Commando foregrip, 45 round mag, and then the Corp Combat hollow sight. And this one's normally, if you're keeping most of your engagements to about medium to short, not all the way short, because if you're pushing a building, this is not going to be the most effective loadout. It's more built for, hey, I take care of like 20 meters up to about 70 meters. With this gun, I'm going to be able to delete a lot of stuff because of TTK, and then use a sniper rifle for everything beyond that. And that close point blank, you really try to avoid that as best you can by positioning yourself as well as you can, not pushing into buildings blindly. You got to know how to use the class setup. But overall, obviously the AMAX, because of its TTK, still moves ahead in this list. And then the class setup for the secondary, sniper rifle. You could really use whatever sniper rifle you want. I just thought I'd mix in another one. Right now, Wrap Suppressor. Combat Recon works really good. Cavalry Lancer work really good on the Tundra. It's pretty much even. It's really a matter of preference. I've been using that one just because that's what I use. Bipod, 7 round mag, and then the 4X because it doesn't have a glint, but it still gives you the same optical zoom as a default sniper without a scope. So if you just had this without an optic, it would still have a glint and have the same level of zoom. At least going this way, you get rid of that, and it speeds up your aim down sight time. And then it gives us to the number 1 loadout, the most broken loadout in my opinion, and that is the AUG. Got a huge buff that brought its bullet velocity up to the M16, which is cool. You're like, well, why isn't the M16 still as good as it was? Well, because the attachments on the M16 got a little bit of bullet velocity nerf, so they kind of made it not as good, even though the recoil is really nice. The AUG is deleting people. It depends on what optic you want to use. That's going to be the biggest difference for most people. But overall, agency silencer, strike team, field agent grip, 45 round mag, and the 3X, 2X, or the multi-zoom. And that's all comes down to preference. And then lastly, FFAR that we've covered. Agency, takedown, field agent grip, 50 round, and then the Raider stock. Pretty straightforward class setups. One thing I will point out is this is actually backed up by the in-game stats over on Warzone Ranked. So this is a website we've shown on the channel before. This is just Warzone Ranked, and you actually can look at the weapons by popularity. I've already kind of gone through the functionality of the site before. One thing I did want to show you, there's a recently added thing here, which is KD ratio. It's a little bit behind my webcam, but once I do that, you can see these numbers right here. These are all KDs. I lowered it a little bit so you guys can see that. And what this is a global KD. When everyone in the lobby is using whatever weapon, what is the KD of this specific weapon? Most games that are balanced, you're going to have KDs between about 0.9 for the lower tier weapons, all the way up to about 1.1 for the higher tier weapons. But then if something's broken or exceptionally like well above average, it's going to be above that, even above the meta. And right here we can see that the weapons that are all part of this list and that ends up being the meta, right? We got MAC 10 with the 1.52. It's probably going to slowly decline just a little bit just because of how broken it was in season 1. It has times to average to change out. AMAX 149, it's always been broken and it's always been good. They just never nerfed it. I don't know why, but it is what it is. FFAR ground loot averages out into that, completely broken. AUG shot up exceptionally. Even the M16 1.08, that is a considerable decline compared to being broken. So just something to keep in mind. Any of these top weapons are generally ones you're going to want to build your loadout with. If you are trying to fit into the meta and trying to stay as competitive as possible, with skill-based matchmaking, you're going to want to use the best stuff at all time. It doesn't really allow you to mess around and play with a random gun that's going to allow you to get outclassed in every possible way, at least until there's a little bit better balancing. A lot of variety in the game right now, but obviously the numbers speak for themselves as being completely stronger than the rest of these other categories where they're kind of sitting right around above average. These are completely broken. So hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, learn something new. If you did, please do me a favor, hit that like button. Again, goal to 10,000 likes. See if you guys can crush that. If you're brand new, want to find your way back for whatever reason, double check, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Appreciate y'all supporting the channel. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.